Evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I've got about a minute after 6, but there's still some people that are working their way in, so I'm going to delay our start for about 3 or 4 minutes and let those that are still outside make their way into the chambers and make sure they don't miss any part of the meeting. So we're going to wait till about 5 minutes after the hour before we get started. Still some folks making their way in, but I'm going to go ahead and get us started. So at this time, we'll call to order our special session of Monday, April 3rd, 2017. We start off all of our council meetings with an opening prayer and pledges of allegiance to the flags of the United States and the state of Texas. Councilman Davis will provide us with the opening prayer. If you'll join me in standing, please.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for your many and abundant blessings. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of serving those in our community. We ask that you watch over the deliberations of this assembled council and grant us wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests and issues of our times, a sense of the welfare and true needs of our residents, the ability to work together in harmony even when there is honest disagreement. It is your most blessed name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor and protect the flag. Thank you, Mr. Davis. All right, a couple things this evening. So how many of you are here this evening and you live outside the city of Schertz? How many of you are there? Well, welcome. Glad to have you with us tonight. This is a special session that I called last Tuesday for today to discuss some things that have come to light with regard to a project being proposed in Cibolo that, as we dug into documents, found would extend across the city limits and into the city of Schertz. And we were a little bit surprised by some of it, so we're having a special session to discuss that. So we have on the agenda a time for hearing of residents. We'll open that to everyone that's here that wishes to speak and would like to be heard. We're going to have that session first. Then we'll have a brief presentation by staff. Then we will have council discussion. And even though it's not on the agenda, after council has discussed, I'll invite anyone from the public that would like to speak again after you've heard our discussion. Again, this is something that is frankly, for I believe everyone on the dais, just for us a few weeks old, some of the details that we've learned. So this is a first of many sessions for us to discover and learn and hear from the public. So at this time, I'm going to open the session called Hearing of Residents. First, I'll go through with the folks that are on the list. I'd ask that when you come forward, if you would state your name and address for the record so the city secretary can capture that. And we do have a three-minute time limit. I would ask you to try to keep to 3 minutes, also knowing that I will open it up again after the council has had discussion. But I've got a little leeway as the chair. I can maybe go a little longer than 3 minutes if I need to, but if we can try to keep it at about 3 minutes, it'd be good. So at this time, the first person who signed up this evening is Don Dixon, and I invite Don to come forward. And again, you'll state your name and address for the record, and then the microphone's yours.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Don Dixon. My address is 206 Morningside Drive, San Antonio, Texas. It's also in the small town of Terrell Hills. And I am a long-term taxpayer of the city of Schertz. Myself and my family owned property on 3009 in Schertz. So we paid taxes in Schertz for a long, long time. So as a taxpayer, I'm very concerned about how our taxes are used. And certainly in this particular case, the way I anticipate that our taxes may be used. As you know, Farm to Market 1103 is a state road. That's a good thing. It's a farm to market road. Now, as far as the taxpayers are concerned, that's a very good thing because when TxDOT maintains that road, they maintain that road at a very large economy of scale. So, and that's a good thing for the taxpayer. So, whenever you have a farm to market road, which traverses your community. This is a blessing. So you want to count this as a blessing, and you want to make sure that that road forever remains a state farm-to-market road. Because if it's offloaded to the taxpayer, that's not a good deal, because then it's a double tax. You're already paying taxes into the state treasury to maintain public roads in this state at a good rate. If it's offloaded to you, the taxpayer is going to have to take that burden on. That is not a good thing. Now, in terms of it being converted to a toll road, this would be, to me, that would be devastating. Because many citizens in this state, and the demographers need to explain this, but it's a very large percentage of the taxpayers of this state are unable to pay the confiscatory taxes of a toll road. So that's not a good thing. And especially in a community like ours, which is very dependent on tourism and military. Very heavily dependent. All of us are. And in this area, especially the military, you certainly don't want to load those people up with the burden of a toll road, which is, again, a double tax. So, from a citizen's standpoint, this whole thing is very complicated. They're asking things that's going to be very involved. And for the betterment of this community and this area, a resolution would be very much in order, protecting your citizens, that we want 1103 to FM 1103 to remain a state road, and we don't want any part of farm-to-market road going into a toll road. That would be my suggestion, and please consider this, because there's a lot of issues with these toll roads. Private toll roads are the worst of all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Next up, I'll call Michelle Womack.
Hi, everybody. I'm
evening.
Michelle Womack, 2944 Mineral Springs in Schertz. I'm not a public speaker, so bear with me. I have reviewed this contract over and over and over again. I've highlighted it, done everything. I've posted it. It looks ridiculous. But I just want to point out a few things that are concerning to me. First off, neither in Resolution 16R19 or the bond referenced in Ordinance Number 15E23 were passed with any knowledge of this parkway existing. It was just supposed to be the widening of 1103. Let's make it look pretty. Let's make it look like Schertz Parkway. Not a major thoroughfare like they're proposing. So to me, our bond money should not be going here. This is not what we're paying for. Second, the overpass at Chelsea and Old Wiederstein. Again, not in our bond. We did not agree to that. We don't want that in our city. That's not a beautification project. That's a giant eyesore in people's backyards that no one wants. Third, the toll collection point at 1103 and 35, again, I don't believe any of us agree to that. It's not what we want in our city. It's not the vision for our city. Fourth, the collection of tolls for the Schertz portion. The city of Cibolo has told me that they are not going to be collecting any taxes for this portion, that all toll road revenue is going to the company. That is actually not correct. If you look in the contract, it does show that Cibolo will be collecting 50% of surplus income for this toll road, to include the Schertz portion. How in the world is another municipality going to collect tolls within our city? That's unacceptable, completely unacceptable. Next, the turnover of the Schertz portion of Cibolo. You can see that on page 2 and also on page 15, section 7.2. The city of Cibolo suggests that after we put our bond money into this project, that they can go to TxDOT and ask that TxDOT turn over the entire portion of 1103 to their city. Why in the world would we be paying our bond money to a road that we're then going to give up? or that's going to be taken from us. So you want to take our money and then take our road? That doesn't sound right to me. It doesn't sound responsible for the city of Schertz as far as management of our money. Next, number 6, delays in TxDOT project because of the Parkway project. They want to do this project at the same time as the 1103 expansion. They also have until December of 2018 to come up with the money to do so. So if the TxDOT comes and says, hey, we're ready to build this road, and they're not ready, because they even get 180 days after that if they have just cause, that's going to slow down our project. That's not good for our city. We want 1103 widened. We don't want the toll road, so that's not our business. We just want our portion. Finally, I would like to suggest to you guys that if we do consider this, that we have something in writing from TxDOT stating that for the Schertz portion of this road, that we are not going to allow those center roads, lanes to come through, that it is only for what we were bonded to do. Other than that, I ask that our bonds be removed from this project. It doesn't have any business there. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up, Jeff Womack.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Womack, 2944 Mineral Springs, Schertz, Texas. Proud to be from Schertz. Also proud of my wife there. Yes, she has been reading it a lot. It's really hard to go after her. I kind of regret, Mayor, having you let her go first. My biggest thing at this point, after the things that Michelle said, is I would question the legality of both the city of Schertz and the city of Cibolo citizens. By overwhelming margins, in 2014, the city of Cibolo voted 71% in favor of bonds to widen 1103 from the city line down to Wagon Way. The year after 2015, the city of Schertz followed it up with a 73% approval of said bonds going from the city limit out to 35. So let's just take the average. 72% of Schertz-Cibolo residents paid to have 1103 widened. And that widening, for anyone who doesn't know, and a lot of people don't really know what that is 2 lanes in each direction, raised medians in the middle, a left turning lane in the middle, bicycle lanes on the outside of those 2 lanes, and then 5 to 6 foot wide sidewalks, much like Schertz Parkway, done on the outside of that. I would question the legality of TTC and the city of Cibolo taking 2 taxpayer-funded bonds and basically ripping them up right after construction or during the construction so that they could put their express lanes in there. I've had a long-standing, long-running argument with several of their councilmen about, they didn't really like the fact that on social media I kept saying I did not fund an on-ramp to your toll road. They were adamant as far as last summer saying this isn't an on-ramp to our toll road. Well, that's kind of funny because on March 10th this year when you signed your agreement with TTC, you made 1103, where it currently stands, an on-ramp to your toll road. So, I just have a problem with that. I know you do too, Mayor. I know a lot of people in this room do. I'm not against toll roads. I think toll roads are great in the right circumstances. If the numbers justify a toll road, I'm all for it. If you want to double deck I-35 and make I-35 upper level a toll road, I think that's brilliant. But running a toll road right through the middle of residential neighborhoods where you have about 120 feet right away as it is, and that's what's going to be required for the current expansion, I don't think it's a good idea. And I don't want to see high-speed traffic on 1103 right up against our homes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Next on my list is Terry Hall. Very good.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Terry Hall, representing Texas Turf and Texans for Toll-Free Highways, and I live on Cromwell Drive in Spring Branch.
Thank you.
Our movement started as a taxpayer revolt against converting existing Highway 281 into a toll road. Then they came after I-10, they want 1604, they want I-35. We also got involved, I'm sure you remember, the fight against the Trans-Texas Corridor, which was one of the biggest and largest network of privatized toll roads ever conceived in any state in the Union. And we managed to fight back on all of them, and some of them we're still fighting. But I think some of the biggest red flags on this particular project is the eminent domain for private gain. It affects the property rights of all Texans. It doesn't just stay isolated in the city of Cibolo. And of course, now they're asking you for eminent domain in the city of Schertz to expand this roadway and make enough room for these express lanes. The jurisdictional issues are another big one. How is it that the city of Cibolo can operate this highway, take it back from TxDOT in the Schertz portion and operate this toll road and hand it to a private company after that? I don't see any legal precedent for this anywhere to be able to do that. So obviously that's a huge problem for you all to consider, which I'm sure you already are. And it just shows how much the cart was put before the horse on this project. I don't think any of you were consulted before this irrevocable agreement was signed with this private toll road developer. Third, there's a pattern of failure with these public-private partnerships. I'm sure you've all heard about the bankruptcy of State Highway 130. You may not have heard about the bankruptcy of Camino Columbia Toll Road in Laredo. In fact, last week in the House Transportation Committee up in the legislature, they heard a bill to take the tolls off of Camino Columbia because it's so controversial. It went bankrupt. TxDOT got a $90 million road back and a fire sale price for about 30 million. I think it was 20 million. And they're still charging tolls even though our gas taxes paid for it in full. So you see that this just starts the controversy. Now we're ending up with roads by contract instead of simple, plain vanilla, just getting our roads widened and everyone can use them and access them freely. Another problem we have with these public-private partnerships is what they call optimism bias in the traffic and revenue studies, or what you would call the traffic forecasts. They basically gin up the numbers to prove whatever they need to go to the bond market and get them to borrow the money to do the road projects. In fact, there's now bond guys suing some of these private toll operators because of this optimum bias. In fact, there's actually been some accusations of fraud against some of these companies. Then they have the punitively high level of tolls on these public-private partnerships. There's two open in the Metroplex today, one on 635 and one on 820, both operated by Centra, which is the same company that went bankrupt on 130. In an urban area, we're seeing punitively high tolls, up to $40 a day in tolls to take these roads today in the Metroplex, because there is no cap on the toll rates. They're virtually allowed to have taxation without any representation by you and I. We can't control that. I'll try and wrap up. Also, the cost to the Schertz taxpayers, obviously you share legal counsel with City of Cibolo. And now, how are you going to get independent counsel? Because there's obviously a conflict of interest with this attorney. You're going to now have the Schertz taxpayers have to pay to get legal counsel on this because you share an attorney with the City of Cibolo who's not going to give you an unbiased legal advice when it comes to reviewing the particulars. Then I would also say the maintenance cost of FM 1103, because we already pay a state gasoline tax. TxDOT already controls this road and pays for that maintenance. When this gets turned over to the City of Cibolo, possibly Cibolo and Schertz, depending on how they do this turnback agreement, that means that the local taxpayers are now on the hook in perpetuity to maintain this road. And none of you got to decide on any of this. And at the end of the day, neither of the taxpayers. And long after this contract is over, that maintenance cost continues for your residents. Then lastly, they signed this irrevocable agreement, and the Cibolo citizens weren't even allowed to see it before it was signed, and before they inked the deal. And it isn't really about solving a traffic problem. It's about converting private farmland, ag land, into a commercial tax base. This isn't really solving a traffic problem. It's really about economic development. We would implore you to reject this toll road, and I'm absolutely happy to be a resource to any of you at any time to answer any questions you may have, as we've done literally over a decade of research on these types of projects.
Very good. Thank you. Next on the list is Woodrow Richardson. Please.
My name is Woodrow Richardson. I live at 2496 Jane Addams Drive. Just listening at the other people here, they putting out some good points, but I'm going to put it out from a truck driver standpoint. Okay. When the toll road was opened down in Laredo, I think it's 255, when that was open, that was a private toll road. The first week I'd run that road, it cost me $19 to run something like 18 miles. I get on the phone and I call Texas and complain about it. They say, oh, that's a private road. I said, well, it won't be in business long. 6 months later, it was out of business. Put a bar across the road. Now, was I right? Then Texas opened it up. Had 3 people collecting tolls, but the trucks had to sit there and wait till 6 o'clock in the morning before they could go on over to the end of the toll road. Had 3 people collecting tolls, and the trucks couldn't get toll passes because the only way you can get them would be to go to AAA. Now, how you going to go to toll pass from AAA if you're out-of-state trucker?
What?
So this is why I'm against it. And if you talk about toll roads, in Texas, there's 5 or 6 different toll passes. Each one of them was a toll road authority. That's the biggest waste of money I've ever seen in my life. Now, when the toll road in Laredo went bankrupt, we bought the thing. We bought it with the taxpayers' dollar. Where'd that money come from? It ain't making a profit today, and that's been 10 years ago, at least. So I don't see any reason for it. If they use the fuel tax money for the purpose that it is intended, you wouldn't need a toll road. That's all I got to say on that one. And I had to come down here to share that today because I'm still driving the truck, and when I go to East Coast, from Illinois all the way up through Maine, all the way down through Virginia, you got 1 toll pass that takes care of everything. You don't even have to stop, just buzz right through. You get to Texas, you got 5 or 6 different toll passes. I took the toll road once with my car, and I had they sent me a bill in the mail because I didn't have a toll pass. So I get on the phone and call them. It took me 5 phone calls to find where I had to pay the thing because I have some money on a toll pass that I have for my truck. Now, but today, you have Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Florida on 1 toll pass, and the rest of the United States, excluding California, on another one. So why do we need it? Why do we need a toll pass when we're supporting everybody in the world? We're here just to create jobs? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And I thank you.
Thank you, sir. Last person I had sign up for the first session here is John Sullivan.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, City Manager. John Sullivan, 513 Triple Crown, Schertz. I really don't have a lot to add beyond what the first 4, I think, said. One concern, it's mostly questions. The one concern beyond the turn-back program, turning movements for businesses on 1103, and the possibility, likelihood of project delay, is the right-of-way width. And specifically, I didn't see anything in the memo about bike lanes and sidewalks, and I know, I really would have preferred to see a multi-use trail on that road with like 10-foot sidewalks and no bike lanes, but we were at least promised bike lanes, so like to make sure that's still in the agreement with TxDOT. Other than that, thank you again for providing this opportunity for public input.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. All right. I don't have anyone else that signed up on the sheet to speak in this first session. However, again, We want to hear from everybody that wants to speak. So if there's anyone present that would like to speak now before staff gives their presentation and council has their deliberation, again, I will open up the hearing of residents after the staff gives its presentation and council has its commentary, so that we can hear from everyone else that would like to speak yet again. So there's a couple, it looks like here. So why don't you start here in the front, and then we'll come to the back. And again, if you state your name and address for the record.
Name is Brent Bolter. I'm at 2633 Cloverbrook Lane, Schertz, and that's in the Belmont Park subdivision, so we're right over in the mix of this. One thing I wanted to bring up before I lose my voice, which is why I'm not going to speak later. So we all recognize, those of us that are in the area, that are all Schertz residents, and that's folks over in Riata, the folks in Belmont Park, that have to get to 1103 in the morning to drive down I-35 to work, points north, points south. So right now, all the folks, and as a lot of folks are aware, they're building along 1103 in Cibolo all the way down to Steele. More subdivisions, more houses, more cars, all right? So in the morning, I leave early just to avoid this, okay? You have a stream of cars coming down 1103 to get on to I-35. Don't talk about I-10. They're not trying to get to I-10. They're trying to get to I-35. So, plus you have the exit ramp coming off I-35 onto 1103. So in the morning, between all the traffic coming this way, all the traffic that's coming off the freeway to go down 1103, primarily I think to go to work or go into the subdivisions and do whatever, all the residents in Schertz that are trying to get on to I-35 out of the two subdivisions that are right there, it's a problem. And the folks that are on 1103 coming from Cibolo will go down Old Wiederstein and cut through Riata and cut through Belmont Park to avoid that long wait and the long line. So we have been wanting and needing 1103 to expand it to I-35. So when we heard about this toll road and all of that going on, to me it's like you want to bring more traffic into this. We've already got a problem, and it's a huge, significant problem. And you're going to want to bring more cars into the mix that can't handle what we got now, just among the residents. Now on social media too, it's been pointed out to some of us that have jumped into the fray that the people in Schertz don't have a dog in the fight, and we have nothing to say about this because 1103 isn't our road, okay? But I just wanted to bring up the point that for those of us that are Schertz residents that live in those two neighborhoods, that whole issue definitely impacts us, okay? So we do have a dog in the fight, especially when Cibolo residents are cutting through our subdivision to get out to the access road to get onto I-35. And I'm still mystified. Where's all this need for I-10 access coming through Cibolo? Who's trying to get there? Most of the local Cibolo and Schertz residents are trying to get to 78 to get to Randolph because there's a lot of folks that work there. They don't go all the way to I-10. So I'm a little mystified at that part of it, other than it being a money-making thing for Cibolo, they think, about all these people that are going to try to cut through, which, again, doesn't make sense. So I just wanted to point out the fact that, yes, Schertz residents have a dog in the fight, especially those of us that are close by this neighborhood. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Stace Long, 548 Stonebrook Drive, and I'm in Cibolo. I actually live right off of 1103. I'm probably 2 stones throw from 1103. 10 years ago, I brought my family. We moved from San Antonio because we do not really want the hustle and bustle. We want the calm. Well, guess what? It's not happening. Now, granted, they did forewarn us of the projected expansion on 1103. Well, let's just see how that pans out. We're still a small town. I'm sure there's going to be some constraints and control put on that, but that didn't happen either. Bring them all is what it seems like from our city council on all their decisions. They want progress, progress, progress. Well, I'm sorry, but that wasn't really the whole intention that I had moving here, and I'm sure that's not the intention of the vast majority of farm owners and a lot of the citizens that have lived here a lot longer than we have. So the traffic is increasing, yes. Widening it, okay, let's go ahead and do that, but then you just fall into the whole proverb this gentleman just said, you build it, they're going to come. So the confusion initially anyway of going all the way to 10 from 35, I did not see any reason necessarily to do that. I'm actually right at the bend, or very close to it, where they are having their intended development start with the toll road. Now, as it is, I don't have a turning lane into my subdivision. And I had spearheaded some of the conversations with TxDOT about reducing the speed limit that went from 45 to 55. And we saw a significant increase in accidents, especially in front of our subdivision. Saw animal hits, all sorts of students getting, it goes on and on. So they reduced it back to 45. Everything's cool. Everything's calm. With this, I don't see where any advantage of having a toll road is going to benefit the citizens. Now, the government, our city council, is supposed to be representing the citizens. But when these decisions are made quietly, with nobody knowing anything about it, and all of a sudden, surprise, it's the cart before or after the horse, however that part goes. So I think it's appalling and unethical as to what our representatives are doing to us citizens in Cibolo, which now it's sounding like it also affects a lot of the Schertz folks as well. I was not aware of that, and I hope we actually have some additional support that direction as to why this is being allowed to happen with the decisions being made by our representatives. I'm here for safety. I'm here for the quiet. Okay, it's building up. It's building up. Of course, the media doesn't help by saying it's the safest place to, best place to move in America. Okay, fine. I'll give it that. But let me tell you something. We didn't expect this horde to happen and the resulting progress, bring it. That's not why we're here. This is a small community. We really prefer to keep it that way as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
My name is Jay Lambert. I live at 975 Oak Ridge here in Schertz. I own property in Cibolo in the route of where the projection's supposed to go. I'm also a business owner in San Antonio, Cibolo, and South Texas. I live in Schertz because I choose to live here. I moved here in 2000. It's a beautiful place. It's grown like crazy, and I don't like that, but you get what you get. I leave real early in the morning, about 6:30. I travel out 1518 to hit I-10 to go south. Most of my business is in South Texas. When I do go towards Cibolo, I never see a problem. There's not a problem getting to I-10. There's a problem getting to Randolph Air Force Base. That's where the traffic is, on 78. So I commend the Schertz City Council. I haven't been active in coming to these meetings, but you guys do a great job running this city. I'm impressed with Schertz Parkway, other than it needs to be paved again.
And that's funded and underway. It will be here shortly.
I'm impressed with 3009, and I think you guys run the city very well. I'm totally against this toll road. I don't know how many times I've used the toll road to going to Dallas. I pay $11 bill, and 6 months later I get a bill for $66. I'm sick of toll roads. Thank you.
Very good. Or anyone else who would like to address the council, please. Don't be nervous. They're just neighbors. It's all good.
My name is Rebecca Melton. I live in Cibolo at 352 Saddlehorn Way. I just actually found out that the city council had put this vote through in chambers, that they didn't bring it to the citizens, and I know they have all right to do that because they do represent the citizens of Cibolo. But with the magnitude of this decision, we feel, many of us feel in Cibolo, that they should have brought this to the citizens for a citizen vote. Because many of us, and I've talked to a lot of people in Cibolo, a lot of people didn't even know this had happened. They didn't even know it was on the agenda. The ones that did know, they were surprised that it had been voted on because it didn't even follow the agenda guidelines that they had for order of business when this was to occur. It kind of jumped out of sequence. So that's another thing that bothers people. The thing is, I live in Cibolo Valley Ranch, which is right across from Steele High School, and is in close proximity to where they're going to start, quote unquote, the toll road. I have a 15-year-old granddaughter who lives with me, and I take her, when I'm not working at the hospital, to school on those days and pick her up. It is a nightmare going up there, and I live across from the school, and coming back. I can imagine for the people that come from the Schertz area to bring their children, how hard it is for them. Sometimes it takes 30 minutes to get off campus. Can you imagine what it's going to be like when they start building up over there? I don't even know how they're going to manage that. And I'm concerned for the students because those kids walk across that street. What's going to happen then? I have no idea. It's going to be a melee. To the citizens of Schertz and to you gentlemen, thank you for taking this opportunity to allow us to come over and say something even though we're not the citizens of Schertz. And I feel like this is a joint effort. I don't think it should be just a Schertz issue or just a Cibolo issue. I think we're sisters. And if we can't embrace that everybody has a voice in that, then we all need to go back to kindergarten and learn how to play nice. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else before we get, please?
I'm Robert Robertson, 4015 Lower Seguin Road. I'm not a resident of Cibolo currently, although they would like for me to be. Something I haven't heard mentioned yet, and I wanted to be sure y'all may be aware of it. I know Terry Hall is. TxDOT has money set aside, ready to go, to widen 1103 from 35 into Steele High School. And we saw a presentation at the city council meeting at Cibolo, I believe it was October, and the TxDOT people gave a presentation of how they were going to widen it to 2 lanes both directions with a turn lane in the middle, and at key intersections they were going to put traffic lights. I don't know about you ladies and gentlemen, but that seems to solve 90% of your traffic problem on 1103. Oh, in addition, please forgive my memory, also in that project was money to completely rework the intersection at 1103 and 35. To completely rework the lights and the intersection, change the ramps, change everything. And if that is carried through, to me, this thing before you tonight becomes moot if that project is carried through. And I'm like a lot of the other people, the numbers do not add up. There is no traffic to speak of. If Cibolo wants to do something, they could widen Hakerville Road. In fact, they have a project in hand that they're already widening Hakerville from Lower Seguin to I-10. But it certainly doesn't carry enough traffic to put forth the $100 million project and to turn over control to state highways to a private entity. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else before I invite staff to, please?
Hi, guys. My name is Dana Eldridge. I live at 2628 Gallant Fox Drive in Cibolo, Texas. Actually, it's Schertz, but post office calls it Cibolo.
Yep.
This intersection of I-35 and 1103, we've got two schools being built on the other side of 35 that's going to cause a lot of traffic. Not counting what we already have lined up from Turning Stone to I-35 in the mornings. If you've never been out there, it takes you a while to get there. It takes you a while to get up the frontage road because you've got people trying to make 4 lanes out of 2 so they can turn onto 1103 or turn to the, however they're doing it. The kids in the neighborhoods know the back roads. They drive the back roads. They drive them fast. They like to pass people who are already doing the speed limit because they're late for school or whatever. You start doing something like this, those back roads are going to get even more dangerous. They're hard to get to for our emergency people if there are accidents back there. We've got enough traffic. We've got enough stuff going on. I don't like stoplights. I like to keep just cruising along. I don't go fast. But I think more stoplights might not be a bad idea. But we can't give up our money, okay? We all don't like to pay taxes, but we do. It goes for certain things. But when we see it being stolen, that's not a good thing. But the traffic right now is nothing compared to what it's going to be when those 2 schools get open on the other side of 35, and that starts building up over there.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Anyone else before I invite staff to start their portion of the meeting? Okay, I don't see anybody taking me up at this time, so at this time I'll ask staff to go ahead and come forward, and Mr. James, I think you're going to give us a single slide presentation.
That's correct.
All right. Hit me.
All right, let's see if I can find it here. Actually, it's 2 slides, yeah, technically, sorry.
We won't count the title slide. How about
Okay,
that?
good.
All right.
Then I'm keeping with that. So April 3rd, 2017, City of Schertz Council meeting. Again, I think just to set the stage for this a bit, you know, we were aware that Cibolo was working on a toll project, but again, we're not aware that it affected Schertz. We understood that they were working just within the boundaries of Cibolo, and that was separate and distinct from what was occurring with TxDOT. But again, as our residents have mentioned, we heard that, in fact, contrary to that, the Cibolo Tollway project is not entirely within the city of Cibolo city limits, that the proposal in the agreement discusses it encroaching into the city of Schertz and impacting us. I will say this, that you know, we initially kind of quickly took stock of things. Our initial reaction, concerns, questions, they were all reiterated by the folks here tonight. So the good news is I think we're thinking the same way. Part of the reason we held this meeting and we wanted to have the public hearing were to hear other concerns as we start thinking about it going forward. But clearly, I think first and foremost is the fact that the proposal makes reference to Cibolo's project being in the city of Schertz, and that's obviously a concern for us. Obviously, a practical matter becomes that this project has the potential to negatively impact our residents with regard to traffic. Clearly, it has significant traffic impacts in the city of Schertz, and this is something that we had not accounted for. We're currently going through the process to update our thoroughfare plan. As someone mentioned, there's a big issue with traffic on FM 78 getting into Randolph Air Force Base. There are issues in Schertz with traffic moving north to south, and we're trying to address that now. So obviously, this project, particularly being within Schertz, would have an impact on the work we're presently doing to try to solve our traffic problems. So that's a concern. Finally, I think there is not finally, but there is a clear concern with regard to potential inconsistencies with what our voters approved with regard to FM 1103. I think we try to be very clear about what a bond is for, what it can be used for, what benefit our residents are going to get at the end of the day. And when this went to the voters, as people mentioned, it was a typical cross-section of an FM roadway, much like people kind of reference Schertz Parkway. What we understand now from an initial review of that agreement is that would change radically under Cibelo's proposal. And so we have significant concerns that this may be counter to what the voters understood when they went forward. And that's something that I think we take a lot of pride in. Here's what we're asking you for. Here's what we're going to do with it. And we can show you that at the end of the day. Along with that, there appear to be some inconsistencies with what we've agreed to with the FM 1103 contract with TxDOT. All the contacts we've had, the meetings, the review of draft plans, the discussions have centered on that typical sort of FM cross-section that people talked about, including access for pedestrians and bicycles and things like that, much like a Schertz Parkway project. And so obviously this is different than what the discussions have been, what those draft plans that we've reviewed are. And then finally, I think the other part is this seems inconsistent with what we've heard our community wants. We haven't had anybody stand up in the 5 years I've been here and said, you know, Schertz, we really think you ought to look at toll roads. That's not occurred once. When there have been discussions on 35 with regard to tolling, and again, that's a different situation, but frankly, the feedback we've heard there has been a lot of questions and concerns. Again, not people standing up in favor of it. So again, that's our initial reaction. Again, what we feel like needs to occur is we need to have a factual understanding of what Cibolo is proposing, what's in their agreement, what the potential impacts on Schertz are, so that we can develop a list of questions and concerns and get factual answers to those. Again, I talk a lot about what the role of staff in the city of Schertz is, and that really is to provide council with full and complete information so that you can take stock of that and then you can make an informed decision for our community. And at this point, we don't have enough information to be able to do that going forward. So we really view this as the first step to get on the same page, work to develop those lists of questions that you have, that staff comes up with, that our citizens come up with, so we can start working to get answers to come back for another discussion. And that's my presentation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. James. So we'll move now to the council discussion. We'll start with the development agreement that the city of Cibolo entered into with the TTC. So, Mr. James, one of the things that you said was we need to make staff aware of the questions that we have and things, basically begin to put together a list of things that we need to explore with Cibolo and kind of get answers to. So if it's all right, I usually start with council, but I'm going to kick us off tonight. And I have several things that I'm going to walk through that are concerning to me or that I think that are conflicting or just I don't understand. On the first page of the development agreement, on page 1, there's a section called the project overview, and it says that the agreement between the Cibolo Turnpike Limited Partnership and the City of Cibolo is comprised of 3 components. The first one is pretty clear. The second one defines the FM 1103 improvements, and it says which consist of the improvements from FM 1103 from Interstate Highway 35 to Rodeo Way. And of course, from the Schertz city limit, which is on the, call it east or south side of the intersection of 1103 and Chelsea and Wiederstein, 235 is within the corporate limits of the city of Schertz. So that's a little challenging for me there when they talk about the Cibolo Expressway in the next section, which consists of adding 2 express lanes in the median of the 1103 improvements. It was just defined in the previous section as being from IH 35 to Rodeo Way. And then it says the term project means the design, build, and finance of the Cibolo Expressway and the Cibolo Parkway, and this is the one that I'm not tracking on. It says operation and maintenance of the 1103 improvements by, I'm sorry, the 1103 improvements, the Cibolo Expressway and the Cibolo Parkway. They just defined the FM 1103 improvements as originating at IH 35, and yet they're talking about operation and maintenance of the improvements of a section that's in the corporate limits of the city of Schertz. So I'm not sure how they're going to get there. I mean, there's some suggestion of it later on in the development agreement. And then the next page, page 2, it says the city will, and the city being previously defined as Cibolo, says will request TxDOT that the design for the FM 1103 improvements accommodate for the addition of future express lanes within the median. It talks about future express lanes within the median, but elsewhere they talk about concurrent development of the express lanes with TxDOT, and it seems some places they say, well, we're going to have the improvements done, and then we're going to do express lanes, and in other places it says that it should be concurrent, and I'm not clear on that one, so that's a question I have as well. And then it says, under TxDOT's turnback program, the city will request that upon TxDOT's completion of the FM 1103 improvements, previously defined as originating at Interstate 35, that TxDOT transfer to it ownership of FM 1103 from IH 35 to Weil Road, including the right-of-way. So if Cibolo is going to ask TxDOT to turn over a section of 1103 that's inside our corporate limits, we probably need to talk to them about that. And I'm not sure how that's going to be accomplished. You know, let me just, there's so many in here. I'm just stop reading and make some comments. First and foremost, this is the first meeting that we're having about this. We're going to have some additional public hearings. We'll publish those. We'll make sure that everybody that wants to come and talk to us about this gets a chance to do so. We need to hear from our residents in the city of Schertz as well. There's no question that the city of Schertz would be affected if the ask from Cibolo is that we ask, make sure I get this in the right order, we ask TxDOT to turn over FM 1103 from 35 to our city limits to us, and then we turn that over to Cibolo, and then Cibolo turns that over to a private company for operations and maintenance. I don't even want to see the legal bill for figuring that one out. We need to hear from our residents as to whether or not that's something they find interesting or palatable or whatever the case may be. And then I've got a lot of, and I have to be careful because, you know, obviously we're recording this and it's going to be out there for the world to see. I've got some pretty strong opinions about this, and I'm going to express them in just a second. But I must say that what I'm about to say, and I would say that chances are very good, and I believe that everyone on the dais would say that if our residents come to us and say, hey, I heard what you said, Mayor, but I really think maybe you're off base, we'd have to listen to that, and we would have to respond to that. But that's why we're going to have the public hearings. So if folks that watch this or see the minutes hear what I say and say, man, you've really lost your mind, they'll have a chance to tell me that. This idea that we as a council, and I don't want to speak for the council, so let me say as me, a Schertz resident, a taxpayer, the mayor, would invest our people's money in the form of a bond in the improvement of an asset, and that as soon as those improvements were completed, that we would turn that asset over to another entity so they could turn it over to a private sector for-profit company is ludicrous. That's crazy talk. I can't imagine a situation where that would be beneficial, except if there was something in return, something significantly more valuable in return for our residents. I don't see that in this agreement. I see nothing for the city of Schertz in this agreement except spending our money to improve an asset and then giving it up. That's not how we conduct business. We also have a section of the city off of Orth Road, section of Schertz off of Orth Road, and then really the only real entry and exit from their subdivision is onto 1103 inside the city limits of Cibolo. I'm concerned about our residents there too. What effect is our express lanes going to have if they're allowed to be put in there on their ability to get in and out of their neighborhood? They have to go into Cibolo in order to get there. That's challenging. The other thing is that we saw a video and then a couple of still shots from a video showing some flyover lanes that over the Chelsea and Wiederstein intersection at 1103. And in the picture that we were supplied, it shows some undeveloped land on the corner of Chelsea and 1103 on the north side. That's not undeveloped land. People live in those houses, and I don't think that they want a flyover going through their backyard. I mean, imagine hearing air brakes at night as the trucks are flying across this flyover lane. No, I have zero interest in that at all. So I'll make one more comment, maybe two. I'm sorry. You know, it's difficult when you give an elected a microphone. Sometimes we like to monologue for a little while. I'm not going to tell Cibolo how to run their business or what to do within their corporate limits. I may say some things about, listen, you may be doing something that's going to have a negative effect on my residents, and I really think that you should consider that and be a good neighbor. So that may happen as we learn more, discover more, hear more. But when it comes to things being done within the corporate limits of the city of Schertz, I expect that same treatment back our way. It's our city. We pay taxes. We're each other's neighbors, and we have responsibilities to one another. I guess my last comment is this. At this time, with the information I have today, and again, if the residents come out to our future public hearings and tell me I've lost my mind, I'm open to listening. Oh, you've got that picture. Maybe we can pass that down, and then we'll put it on the overhead there. With the information I have before me today, the express lanes, the tolling, whatever, Cibolo really wants to do that. They can. I'm really don't think it's the best solution, but today that stops at the corporate limits of the city of Schertz. It does not pass into our city. With that said, I'm going to open it up to the City Council. Mr. Crawford?
Mayor Carpenter, maybe staff, is this kind of our first overture on sort of being ignored by the city of Cibolo? Because everything I read today didn't really mention Schertz at all, except we wouldn't have to pay tolls for EMS and fire.
Well, if you're asking if this is the first time that we've had any kind of a conflict with the...
No, not a conflict in the past, just with respect to this particular project, because we thought we were going to do 1103 from 35 to Old Wiederstein Road, Chelsea.
Right.
And they have the money already, just like we do, to do from
That's right.
Chelsea to Weil or Steele High School.
Yep.
And this was kind of a big surprise that I did get this yesterday, whatever today, and sit down and read it and see no mention, and get here at council and have this on the dais. It says 3 April from the Honorable Mayor and City Council of Schertz to them from Cibolo, kind of an apology saying, we ignored y'all. And they sent it out today. Unless I misread it, that's the way I took it.
I don't think that you've misread. I'm hopeful that this is an isolated incident. We have other things that we're working on with the city of Cibolo, like the Cibolo Valley Local Government Corporation, and we share some services, and I'm hopeful this is an isolated error in the way that we engage. I'm hopeful, but I'm concerned, and I do share your concern, Mr. Crawford.
And we do have the concern about the legal aspects of them trying to take something from us that we're using our bond money to fix and make better. And that's a whole other, there's as many issues as there are people sitting out here in the audience, probably times 10. and I don't think that's good for us either.
No, it's not good for us. Us improving an asset and turning it over to another entity is just, I don't, for no gain, I can't follow either. I'm with you. Mr. Edwards?
Mr. Mayor, I can certainly say I've been out here since 1997, and I remember times when Cibolo and Schertz kind of went back and forth on whose project is this, who's going to do what, right? But since I've been on council, I can certainly tell you that we've been open, transparent, and had a cordial relationship with the city of Cibolo and its leaders since I've been on council for certain, and prior when you were on council as well, Mr. Mayor, as a council member. You know, you kind of wonder if I live next door to Mr. Thompson and I start going out to look at my fence and I'm going to repair my fence, before I do anything, I think it would be wise for me to knock on my neighbor's door and say, hey, Robin, I'm going to be doing some work over here. You might want to know about this. Prior to me going out and buying lumber, me getting feasibility studies done, I have a real problem with the way this is handled. I know a lot of the leadership in Cibolo, great guys. I just think they have misplaced value and ethics when it comes to this particular case here, as I think their citizens are feeling that. I do recommend that we do an exhaustive search for an outside counsel on this particular issue. Is it going to be costly? Yes. But in order for us to do it correctly and being open and transparent with our constituents here, with our community, and with all of our business stakeholders, I think it's important that we have an exhaustive search for outside counsel for this particular issue. So with that being said, with that even being said, Mr. Mayor, I would encourage everyone, maybe we should put up the signs and do those public meetings, either have the sign put up saying that we're doing those public meetings far in advance enough for us to get that done, and let people know, because I think this is just a small representation of what's really going on out in the community. I really do. Yeah.
Mr. Thompson?
I'd like to ask Mr. James some questions, please. You mentioned in the slide the factual content. So just for clarity, so that we're all on board, the factual understanding of the project, first of all, would you, for everybody here, I think we know what you mean, but would you define what a turnback is so we're all on the same page?
And let me say this, Mayor, or Councilman, rather than
Don't
me
get ahead of yourself.
Sorry. Not wishful thinking, not wishful thinking.
No offense, Mr. Thompson.
So let me say this, Councilman Thompson. I think rather than me tell you what I understand it to be from Cibolo's agreement, I think that's something that we have to get a clear understanding, because I may take what I view the standard definition of a turnback and say, this is what that is, and they may have a very different idea. So apologize. I think my point earlier was I am reluctant to make a lot of assumptions about the agreement. I think as the mayor notes, when you read it in particular, you kind of reference back and wait, I thought it said they were going to do this, and it seems to imply something different throughout the agreement. So
Very fair. I appreciate that.
That's one of our questions.
So other questions for you. For sake of factual understanding, do we know if the express lanes in the proposed Cibolo Expressway would be periodic lanes with flyover, as the concept shows, or would they be a continuous two-lane isolated expressway all along 1103?
Again, at this point, we don't know.
Okay, thank you. Do we know if the turn back would be automatic upon completion of the 1103 project?
Don't know.
Thank you. Do we know what the status of this project would be on Schertz commercial business and homes along the proposed turnback portion if the turnback goes into effect? In other words, are they still in the city limits?
Do not know.
All right, thank you. Do we know if what the locations of the toll collection booths would be located, especially along the 1103 I-35 portion?
No, sir.
Thank you. Do we know where the express lanes in the proposed turnback portion will be? In other words, where would the expressway traffic enter into either 1103 or I-35? Do we know
Not exactly.
Okay.
We haven't seen schematics.
All right, thank you. Do we know what the added legal cost would be of attaining outside counsel if indeed the law firm that is counseling both cities cannot represent both cities?
No,
So
sir.
we don't know the added burden to the taxpayer.
No, sir.
Okay. Do we know, well, okay, those are just, again, I believe I knew the answers to all those, but I think it just points out that there are many facts that are totally up in the air. So there's no way that we can move forward one way or the other, except, as Mayor Carpenter has said, we value the city of Cibolo. We value the relationships we've built with them over the years. We have a lot of great working agreements that benefit both cities. Mayor Cedric, now you're mayor.
He's the mayor pro tem. You're safe.
Okay.
No, you're okay.
Mayor Pro Tem Edwards has a great quote that goes something to the effect that 3009 is the zipper that that connects both cities and makes us one. So I don't want to see the damage done between the two cities. I want to see us move forward in a great way together, but I don't see how we can move forward without the discussion of a whole lot of facts that we don't have.
Yes.
Mr. Gutierrez?
Mr. James?
Might as well stay.
And more wishful thinking on my part.
When you do your study, could you look at the distance, what is it, Farm Road 46 connects to I-10, I think, around New Braunfels? What that distance is between 46 and FM 1103? And also the distance between 1604 and 1103. It seems like they're trying to put a toll road between two roads that connect to I-10.
Yes, sir. We can get this distance.
Okay. I also am concerned about the conflict of interest, as Ms. Hall indicated that we share the same law firm. I want to know more information as to who's going to step down.
Yes, sir.
Okay. My other concern is the increase in traffic along the Schertz portion of 1103. Even if we don't approve the connection, even the turnpike is going to dump a massive traffic on 1103, even if it's on the Cibolo side. And my concerns is, the average citizen is going to try to avoid these toll roads. And guess what? Google Maps makes it easy for students to do that. So I have a big concern about increased safety and health to our concerned citizens because they'll try to navigate through the residential areas. Make no mistake, toll roads are basically try to generate revenue. Just look at I-10 over in Houston. I think their toll roads are set at $7. And they're trying to increase it to $10. Not only that, they also have a rate hike during peak hours. So that concerns me also is that, if there's a massive traffic accident somewhere, they're going to take advantage of the citizen and just increase the toll roads during that time. Another thing is that it's very confusing. I traveled through some of these toll roads, the signage, how much the average citizen is going to pay from one toll to the next or 1 mile to the next mile. And I think it's very surprising sometimes. And the only surprise I want to see is, my Christmas present, not when I open the envelope. So those are my concerns too.
Yes, sir.
Very good. Dr. Kaiser?
First of all, I did want to say to the residents that spoke, I thought you did an excellent job of doing your homework and actually, coming up here and giving us a lot to think about. And I would say I agree with pretty much everything they said, the concerns that they had. And I, too, saw the date on the letter, as Mr. Crawford pointed out, is today's date. And then when you go back in the letter, this was an initial concept in the spring of 2015. And on April the 3rd in 2017, they're saying, oh, we made some assumptions about Schertz. That's a problem for me. And I agree, we need to continue to work with Cibolo. They're our neighbors, But for them to just do this, and, you know, did they not think about everything that the residents brought up? Because it seems to me if they did, this would not be happening, or did they just ignore it? You know, that's a question I'd like to ask them.
Mr. Davis?
Yeah, I have to be very careful in my words here because I don't want to start a firestorm. I'm kind of the odd duck. I grew up in the Northeast by Philadelphia area. So I grew up with toll roads and toll bridges and toll tunnels. And in my experience, they have a place. This is the wrong place. It makes, you know, I can understand a toll road that's being designed to move traffic or cut down the distance of getting from point A to point B. I just don't understand the concept of a toll road concept that cuts through a city, or more importantly, through residential areas. I have to echo Dr. Kaiser's comments. It's kind of shocking and disheartening to see that this has been going on for about 2 years, and 2 years after the fact, they say, oh, by the way, we thought you guys would be happy with this. That's disheartening and concerning. I look forward to getting the rest of the questions answered from the staff and having some future public hearings on this. But even with future public hearings, I cannot see how a toll road concept going through or along our residential areas is going to be a good thing for Schertz in any way, shape, or form.
Larson?
Yeah, I echo a lot of the concerns, and I even echo Mr. Davis. I think toll roads in certain instances could potentially be a private market solution for a real problem. But the reality is it doesn't make sense in the end, because the thing that's a non-starter for me is this idea of eminent domain, that we're going to use the force of government to take somebody's land at a value that the government decides against their will. I will never... There's a lot of facts that we need to learn, and I understand, I agree I'm going to be open to the facts, but I'll be honest with you, from my perspective, you have the right to know what I'm thinking. If there's ever any portion of any contract that says we're going to use the force of a gun, or government, to make somebody sell their private land and give it to a private for-profit company, I don't need any other facts. I mean, that's a non-starter. And I think government exists as a partnership between the people who are in the government, the staff and the elected officials, and the community. And it's the staff and the elected officials are at the bottom of that partnership, holding up, supporting the community. And the community's voice is what dictates us. And so there are a lot of instances where if I'm against something and the community makes it clear they're for it, then I'm going to support the will of the community. But I'll tell you, there's one exception. And you'll understand this theme. If 99% of the citizens of Schertz show up at my door and say that they want a project that requires eminent domain, that will take private property and give it to another private entity, I will vote against 99% of the citizens of Schertz, because there's a fundamental right, property rights, is at the basis of our government, and that's a non-starter. And so I think there are times that we run into conflict with our neighbors in real life and in the government way, and conflict is not always bad. A lot of times conflict is good. It sharpens one another. I think that there's a lot of pressures, and I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt to the leaders of Cibolo, but there is frustration. This letter that they wrote us today, the message was, we thought it would be good for you. I never trust a government entity that does a agreement without including all parties involved and then comes out and says, well, we thought it would be good for you. Well, I don't care if you think it'd be good for me. I want you to have that conversation with me and let's decide together. And so I think moving forward, you being here sends a message. I think it should be clear that the mayor has spearheaded this and made it very clear. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I love being on council, but sometimes you have a long day at work and you get to council and you look and you see there's a public hearing and you think, oh man, I wish that was the next week. But the mayor knows how important it is, and we know how important it is to hear your voice and to hear what you have to say. And I think it's valuable that this opportunity is for you. I want you to take advantage of this opportunity. I want you to tell your neighbors that live in Schertz, that live in Cibolo. I've heard many of them feel like they weren't heard. Let them come here. When we hear them, I assure you that if you weren't heard in Cibolo, you will be if you come and speak here, because they have to hear what's happening. And so thank you for being here. As staff, I know this has put a burden on our staff, so thank them. They've got plenty to do already, and now they're digging in another problem. That's just, I want you who are here to kind of know where I'm coming from and where I stand on this, so that's all I got.
Mr. Crawford?
Can we get,
Oh, you turn it off.
can we get some really good advertisement out on the public hearings, like post signs on 1103 where we own 1103?
We are going to over-communicate to make sure everybody has an
They
opportunity.
didn't get the message from us.
Anyone else, council? I've got one more thing, and after reading this agreement that was signed by Cibolo and reading it again. In fact, you can see it. Actually, you probably can't see. I've read it so many times that I've got different color highlighter on it. You know, I struggled, and I was in conflict. You know, how much do I say? How much do we say? Cibolo is its own city. I don't want to sit here and try to tell them how to run their business, but at the same time, a lot of the decisions that they're making are going to affect the people of this community and of their own. And so one of my heroes is John Adams, our second president. And since I was a kid, and I started to be involved in politics, just so you know, I was elected president of my kindergarten class, and that's how this all got started. I have a quote that I want to read into the record from John Adams, and I hope that it applies, and I know, after listening to my colleagues here on this dais, I know it applies to this council, and I hope it applies everywhere in our country. And John Adams said that government is instituted for the common good, for the protection, safety, prosperity, and happiness of the people, and not for profit, honor, or private interest of any one man, family, or class of men. Therefore, the people alone have an incontestable, unalienable, and indefeasible right to institute government, and to reform, alter, or totally change the same when their protection, safety, prosperity, and happiness require it. What great words. Brilliant words. So if we want something different, my friends, then it's up to all of us, and we have to work together to get where we want to go. And we will have a minimum of 3 public hearings that will follow this. One of them will be at our Council on the Go meeting, which will be held at the what was the old volunteer fire station up north here in Schertz, much closer to everyone. We may move the location to a larger venue.
The larger venue.
It'd probably be pretty smart. We might have a lot of folks show up for that one. But we will also have some here, and if required, we'll go out on the road somewhere else. We'll make sure that those opportunities are made available for everyone in Cibolo and Schertz that wants to speak on the matters multiple times. So at this time, as I said, I'm going to go back to the hearing of residents, and anyone that would like to step forward and speak may do so. I would ask you once again to give us your name and your address, and try as you can to keep your comments down to about 3 minutes. So name and address, sir, please.
My name is Harvey Hill. I live over on Wild Road, just on the other side of 1103. I participated in the original planning of the extension of 1103 on down to Interstate 10. It seems like, and it was with TxDOT. And talking to the engineer over this area out here, he don't even know what in the world was negotiated in the first place with them. It was originally supposed to be 4-lane up to 38 and 6-lane all the way to 35. He tells me that they've already started on the expansion of the bridge across 35 right now. I saw him out there about 2 months ago digging, I guess, where pilings are going to be. But until that's done, nothing is going to be done as far as the road goes itself. if something has changed within the last half hour, because I just left talking to the city secretary, and the only thing that has been negotiated is for the toll road to come up to 78 and a flyover the railroad track, and from there it's the city's responsibility all the way on up, and Schertz too. I don't know how far. The TxDOT, I know, is going to expand it to a 5-lane with a turn lane in the middle, according to the engineer. As far as getting upset or with all of the talking that's going on here, it seems like a lot of y'all don't have a clue to what's going on it, but that's where it's standing right now. TxDOT has to purchase right away and everything. I doubt if it'll even be this year, maybe even next year before anything gets done on it. I just wanted to clarify all of that because a bunch of y'all are just talking like don't know anything about what's going on here, and I wanted to drop a little FYI on everybody.
Okay.
I'm not for the toll road either, by the way.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Hill. Anyone else that would like to address? Yes, please. Ms. Hall?
All right, a couple more things, if you don't mind. Terry Hall with Texas Turf and Texans for Toll-Free Highways, and I live on Cornwall and Spring Branch. Another thing that you need to consider is how Cibolo Turnpike's express lanes will affect your ability to expand those free lanes on FM 1103 in the future, due to the toll lanes taking up valuable real estate in the center of this already very valuable asset. It will force you to condemn possibly very expensive commercial property in some parts, especially near 35, in order to expand those free lanes. Another thing is, we're seeing now on the new iteration of public-private partnerships that you don't get the road back when it goes bankrupt. We were promised way back in 2007, because I was at those hearings, by the then Transportation Commission Chairman, Rick Williamson, that if 130 went bankrupt, that you and I would get it back free and clear of any debt. That hasn't happened. What happens is they go to bankruptcy court, and the senior lien holder, the bond holders, get first dibs at getting their money back. And so they just got rid of Centra and Zachary. They're getting a new operator to come in, and they're just going to keep charging tolls until that contract is up. So if you think you're going to get it back at a fire sale price, because I've heard Mayor Dunn say this over in Cibolo, it's not going to happen because those senior lien bondholders want their money first. Another thing about the overpasses, one of the things that really caused a stir with the Trans-Texas Corridor was how a private toll road in particular actually has the power to bifurcate someone's farmland. You basically put this road down the middle of someone's parcel, and it's up to the private developer whether or not they have to put in an overpass. Well, when an overpass costs roughly $10 million, they're not going to build overpasses because that costs them more money. And they're not the government, so you can't make them allow you to get access. So if you've got this road and you've got cattle, you've got farm equipment, you've got things you need to move across this major high-speed road, how can you do it without an overpass? If you look carefully at the development agreement, it says and only identifies 2 overpasses on that southern stretch that connects to I-10. 2. For, what is that, 7.8 miles roughly? That's not too many overpasses when you think about how many overpasses there are on 35. So that's another problem with the way this is being done and the impacts it's going to have on people's property and the use and enjoyment of their land and potentially their livelihoods. Then you also mentioned traffic diversion. One of you council people did. I'm sorry if I'm pointing to the wrong one. That's the dirty little secret with a lot of these toll projects. In fact, the EIS, or the Environmental Impact Statement for the 281 toll road, actually acknowledged traffic diversion. They actually say and admit in that document that people are going to avoid taking the toll lanes. So that disperses or diverts traffic onto the side roads, which guess what? Those are the city of Cibolo and Schertz roads. That is going to impact you. It's going to increase your maintenance. And there's actually another study that was done and entered into the record by Kay Bailey Hutchison years ago in Congress and in the Senate, where she also put in there the acknowledgement of traffic diversion. Then my last thing is about who's going to police and collect tolls for this road. One of the 3 things the private operator wants government for, The first is non-compete. Now, they keep saying in this development agreement, and they keep saying in these meetings, that there's not going to be any non-compete agreements. But I know from experience in the last 10 years, the bondholders require some kind of non-compete agreement, or they won't give you the money. Non-compete means they're not going to expand any free roads, or they will penalize you or make you pay the private toll company for any loss in toll revenue if you expand any of your city roads that compete with their toll revenue. That's the first thing they need government for. The second thing they need it for is for subsidies, because they can't make any of these toll roads work just on their own money. So they go after federal TIFIA loans, private activity bonds, which is another federally backed program, state funds, you name it. We have not seen one of these projects get off the ground without public money. Okay, then the third thing is the toll collection. Well, guess what TxDOT has the power to do? Yes, sir. TxDOT has the power to block your vehicle registration if you fail to pay the toll. So if TxDOT's going to be the toll collector and it's going to be interoperable with the text tag, that means that they can block your citizen's vehicle registration for a for-profit toll entity. And I would say the policing as well. Are they going to use City of Schertz police officers to police that part of FM 1103 if it's technically under the control of a private company? What kind of implications is that to have this, the color of authority of your police officers basically becoming a glorified toll collector for a private company? There's a lot of implications to this that you may not have considered, so I wanted to bring those up. Thank you for giving me the time.
Very good.
Mayor, I apologize, just if I could chime in real quick.
Yes, Mr. James.
Linda Klepper and Back is passing out a sign-in sheet for folks. So again, if you didn't sign in to speak at the public hearing, or even if you did, if you can write your name and email address down so that we can make sure the folks who took the time to show up tonight, we can send out an email to you to notify you of future meetings. We just don't want to miss you in the future, and that helps us. So it's coming around and back.
Very good, thank you. Worthy of an interruption. Anyone else that would like to address the council on this? Mr. Beam?
Council members, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to thank y'all for coming in on Monday. I know y'all had a couple of work, like Scott was saying. I like toll roads. I drive on 45 and 130 going up to Temple every time I go up there. I take the Beltway in Houston. But if somebody would have told me in 1997 when I came into Schertz that they would have a tollway in 2017, I would have laughed. I would have bet $1 million that it would never happen. I also remember seeing the thing that Michelle posted, that they were saying there's going to be a lot of commercial construction and industry when they build this toll road. I know up on 45 and 130, I think now I see 2 gas stations. I just don't see any development. And also, how are you going to fit it on 6 lanes, when there's houses on each side of 1103? I just think it's ridiculous. Like I said, I'm all for it, but when Michelle posted it and I saw where it was actually going to come off and come through Schertz and come down 1103, I just think that's ridiculous. There's no reason. 4 lanes on 1103 is going to impede on the houses, I think, quite a bit. But if you have the expressway lanes in there, it's going to make it even worse. And then the turn-in lane, it's just going to be ridiculous. I know when we all were campaigning for council, probably the first or second issue all heard about were the roads. The residents were all worried about it. Everybody was worried about it, 3009, 1103, what's going to happen. And I just think y'all need to listen to the residents like y'all were saying. Take to heed what we're all saying. I think a lot of it's kind of like the affordable housing there. We don't necessarily against toll roads, but we just think there's a better place for them to be. And going down 1103, I don't think is the best place for it, for Schertz, for the residents, for all the houses and everything else. But I think that's it. So thank you.
Can you just state your name for the record so the city secretary can...
Eric Beam, 570 American Flag, Schertz, Texas, 78108.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. Anyone else that would like to address it? Please, sir.
Greg Howell, 2525 Pillory Point in Schertz. I'm like a few people in this room. I find it very difficult that the city of Seville has been working this project for 2 years and today had an aha moment and thought, we're involving Schertz property, maybe we should let them know that we're taking it away from them. I find that very difficult to believe that 2 years later they had that idea. Another thing that I've read the contract or the agreement several times as well, and it states it's irrevocable. That if everything inside that agreement doesn't go as the city of Seville agreed to and signed that, then they're going to be out a lot of money. So I would think that before they signed that, knowing that a lot of the property they're talking about belongs to the city of Schertz, someone wouldn't have signed that saying Schertz will give us their property, and all the citizens that approve this bond and are paying their taxpayer money, who cares? We'll get the money and we'll get the toll road and we'll get the revenues, and they won't even think about it. I have a really difficult time understanding that. I'm sorry.
I'm with you. With you. Certainly. Mr. Womack?
Jeff Womack, 2944 Mineral Springs, Schertz, Texas. I just want to take the opportunity to thank all of our City of Schertz representatives that are here. I want to thank all the people, both from the great city of Schertz and the great city of Cibolo, who have stood up and have decided to participate in this representative government, because this is the way it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be, we're going to tell you how to do things. And I just appreciate every one of you guys. You know, some of you know we didn't have the greatest relationship back in November and stuff, but it does my heart good, you know, to see us all up here working for the city of Schertz and even the city of Cibolo. And for people who may be newer to the area, this city particularly has a long history of slow and deliberate progress towards making the city great. And we don't do things just for expediency. We do things for what it's going to mean to our children and what it's going to mean for us when we need to move into one of the old folks' homes and stuff like that. We need our city to be here for us. We've heard countless times tonight, when I moved here, I didn't expect it to be this. Well, I moved to Schertz in 2002, and originally. And Schertz was a good-sized town in 2002. Schertz has grown a little bit since 2002, but we've grown smart. I've been privy to find out about things that didn't go through in Schertz. I've been very fortunate to help keep some things coming into Schertz, and I don't regret any of them, because in the end, today, tomorrow, next year, we're better for the smart decisions and the wise leadership that we have coming from both our staff and our council. And I just want to thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I'm sorry, I'm up here again. My name is Dana Eldridge, 2628 Gallant Fox Drive. It says Cibolo, but I'm in Schertz. I agree with this young man right here. He said, how could this be going on for 2 years and we don't know about it? I've lived out in Belmont Park for 11 years. I've lived in Schertz since 1996. The Walmart came in over here to Cibolo, and there was such an outcry about how much problem that was going to cause and all the stuff that was going on with that, how much trouble it was going to bring into the neighborhood, all that stuff going on. How come we haven't heard about what's been going on with this 1103? How did it keep so quiet? They've had several things blow up in Cibolo over the years with stuff going on. I have some friends that live out off of Green Valley Road. They moved in, what, 4 years ago? And they were told there was going to be a road behind their house through some open farmland. It was going to be a bypass going to I-10. Now all of a sudden 1103 is being used. So something happened in that time that the property right behind them was not available, evidently, and now they're going to try to use 1103. I don't know how it's been kept quiet. There was such an uproar on several other things. It's a very questionable situation.
Yep. Please.
Hi, Melissa Tovar, 1740 Bolton Road, Marion. And a couple of points, one of which, Mr. Larson, you talked about eminent domain. There's approximately 40 landowners who can potentially be affected by this toll road. So that's a pretty significant amount of people. You know, we keep being told repeatedly, you know, eminent domain will be a last resort. Well, of course it'll be a last resort, but the threat is still there. So that's extremely significant to us. Most of all, I just want to thank you, Council and Mayor, for having this meeting, making other citizens welcome here, and most importantly, for listening to your citizens. There's a large amount of citizens in Cibolo that do not feel like our voices have been heard and we've been adequately represented. And so I just really commend y'all for stepping up and taking the time to really listen to your citizens, making them feel important, and making decisions based on what your constituents want. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Please. We're quite serious about hearing from everybody, so you're quite welcome.
I just want to let you know, we've been a little bit demeaned by our city council for some of our points of view.
Just step up closer.
I'm sorry.
There you go.
We've been
And
demeaned
again,
by
if you give your name and address. I know you did before, but for the city.
Rebecca Melton. I live at 352 Saddlehorn Way, Cibolo, Texas, 78108.
Cool. Thank you.
Oh, and I got to tell y'all, y'all have got the most awesome Schertz EMS. They saved my life. I had a major heart attack on Friday the 13th, 2013. They saved my life. When I got to the hospital, the doctor told me after the fact, you should have died.
Thank you.
I've got a defibrillator in my chest, but I'm alive and kicking, so thanks a lot.
Thank you.
I just want to tell y'all, I appreciate your demeanor, that y'all really take this seriously, that you're listening to people outside of your constituency. But we were told that this would not cost the citizens of Cibolo anything. When 130 went bankrupt on the southern portion, it had $500 million in federal low-cost loans. Do you know what happened to those loans? You, me, everybody in the United States is going to be paying for that because they defaulted on their loan. That's just one point that I wanted to make. The other thing about eminent domain is for public use. It is not for a private entity to profit from.
That's right.
And the other thing that bothers me is the private entity is giving the city of Cibolo the money to acquire eminent domain. That's a real ethical issue. I work in healthcare. I know a lot about ethics. I have a problem with that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir. Please.
Thank you for hearing me again. Stace Long. I'm at 548 Stonebrook Drive in Cibolo. I think the sensitive thing that we need to make sure of, too, I had mentioned, or I had heard you mention wanting to make sure what they have to say. So Cibolo. And yes, I'm Cibolo, but I'm not representing them. They're supposed to be representing me and us. The concern that I have is when you ask them, what happened here? I really don't care what they even say, because initially, yes, I was against the Walmart thing when it came in, because my biggest concern was the decision was made and signed and printed, and then the citizens pretty much knew about it at that point. So there's something that's real quiet that they prefer to do business as, which leads me to question why they're being so non-transparent. This is another situation. It's almost identical as far as how quiet everything is happening, except in this case, there's a lot more ramifications. So I guess I just wanted to stress that even though you check with them and ask them, you know, what happened here, can you explain? I almost don't even, I'm not even going to believe anything that they're going to tell me. I forgot, sorry about the late memo. It kind of doesn't matter because I'm not trusting what it is that they're doing, unfortunately. They had I think they call them the recall petitions, where they're pulling the council member. So all that happened. So there were a lot of other concerns that were going on. So now this is another situation that's happened. And the turf representative, I saw that information last night, and I read it last night, and this morning my jaw dropped. I am appalled. By the way, my understanding is the reason for the toll was to have access to 10 for development purposes, business development purposes for Cibolo. And I'm really not sure how that benefits Cibolo by having someone expressly go from 35 to 10. I don't know how that's helping any of us. And that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, sir. All right. Please.
Sorry, guys. Since we're almost done here, I kind of find this comical, so I thought I would share it with you.
By the way, for the city secretary, this is Mrs. Womack.
Womack, 2944 Mineral Springs. Anyway, this is a picture of the newsletter that went around to residents of Cibolo. Y'all can feel free to borrow this from me, do whatever you need. And it talks about Cibolo Parkway being the city of choice. And the thing that I think is really comical after being here tonight is that I think we can all agree that none of us knew what was going on here, right? That none of us have been given enough information as the city of Schertz. But in this last paragraph, it says, collaboration is key to the construction, finance, and maintenance of Cibolo Parkway. The city is working closely with Texas Turnpike Company, who will secure private funds for construction, operation, and maintenance of the toll road. Under this development agreement, the city does not expend any city funds, therefore property taxes will not be raised or increased, or used or increased, I'm sorry. As the project moves forward, the Texas Turnpike Company will continue to work closely with the city of Cibolo, as well as the Texas Department of Transportation, the Alamo Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, and the city of Schertz. Have y'all felt that way? I don't think so. But here it is. And it's gone to all their residents. So there's your laugh for the evening. And again, thank you all for listening to us.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to address the council? Please, sir.
Rondo Hayward, 2628 Hansel Heights, Schertz, Texas. This is kind of a rhetorical question, but it's not. But based upon what you all said here, I got to ask this question. You said you worked in the past closely with the city of Cibolo. So my question becomes, do they understand what the city boundary limits are between Schertz and the city boundary limits of Cibolo? Everything you've read seems to indicate that they don't understand where those boundary lines are. So do they really understand that or not? And I'm going to echo Council Member Davis, talk about being in the northeast and toll roads. Yes, as a child I had that experience. It sucks.
Salud.
Okay, that's it. I want to thank you all for taking this time, Mr. Mayor, Council, for having us out here, voicing this. I will be at your next meeting, so keep us posted.
Will do. Definitely will do. Anyone else? Okay. A question was asked. It's been asked a number of times. And the question was, how is it that you guys didn't know? How is it Cibolo didn't say anything? And as a statement of fact, I was at a meeting of the Northeast Partnership, and I asked a pointed question. I said, "So my understanding is that this project is completely confined within the city limits of the city of Cibolo. Is that correct?" And I was told, yes, that is correct. And I relied upon that until March the 10th, when I had an opportunity to read the agreement as was signed. And I guess that's really the only light I can shed on it for you. I don't know how we didn't have better communication, but suffice to say that what we can control is what happens here in this city, and what we can commit to and will commit to are ongoing public hearings with our residents and anyone else from Cibolo that wants to join us, and we'll march forward in a very open manner and continue the public discourse. So, is it fair for me to, okay, we've got an email from TxDOT dated, looks like March 23rd. Okay, this is good. It's a note from Jonathan Bean. Jonathan is the Director of Transportation Planning and Development for TxDOT in the San Antonio District. And the note reads, "Thank you for the note and the heads up on concerns you are hearing. To be clear, TxDOT has not made any change to our plans for FM 1103. The expansion project we have been coordinating with both the City of Schertz and the City of Cibolo involves an expansion to 4 lanes with a 2-way left turn lane, raised median, bike lanes, and sidewalks. Any change to this section would involve discussions and approval by both city councils. Any project development activities conducted by the City of Cibolo and or the private developer regarding the Cibolo Parkway connection between existing FM 1103 to I-10 are independent from the FM 1103 project that we have been discussing." Sounds to me like TxDOT's not on board with any of the express lanes either. Yep. Mr. Thompson?
One thing I want to stress, especially to any residents of Cibolo who may be here tonight, we are not under any set timetable for the public hearings. We have a city staff that does a great job. They have a lot of responsibilities already. To ask them to find the facts to the many questions that are coming out is going to take some time. If you do not hear about a public hearing in the immediate future, that doesn't mean that this has all gone underground or that we've forgotten it. It simply means the city staff is doing the job the council has asked them to do, and you can be confident in that. When the facts are ready, the public hearing for those facts will be announced, and we'll have plenty of announcements in many different ways.
Indeed. Mr. Crawford?
I'm going to ask you a question, Mr. Mayor. In view of what Mr. Thompson said, they may hear things that we don't hear.
Mm-hmm.
Would it be okay if they sent an email to council members saying, I heard this, and we can pass that around? I don't want to burden the council per se, but you folks sometimes hear a lot more things than we do, and we need to have a two-way street here, because if we can help staff find out about something sooner, I think that would have a value, but I'll leave the choice to how you want to do that.
Listen, contact us, contact staff. I think you'll find that all of the members of this body have their email addresses on the website. Our phone numbers are listed there too. Now, there's a city phone number that's listed for me, but it automatically forwards to this phone right here. I would suggest that most of the folks up here will be happy to give you a business card and give you their personal mobile phone numbers as well, or whatever. We're accessible, and we want to hear from you, to Mr. Crawford's point. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Staff? Anything further from staff? Folks, thank you for joining us this evening. We appreciate you being here and look forward to seeing you again at our future public hearings as we continue to figure out how this is all going to end up. I think what you saw tonight, though, was a unanimous city council in the way that we feel about how things have gone so far. And as I said earlier, and I think the council agrees, at this time, in the absence of any further information, that project stops at Schertz city limits. Thank you all. We'll see you. We're adjourned.